All right, welcome back to this episode of the Diamond Ledger. I'm so excited to introduce the diamond of the season, Shaun Chavis.
Yes, that's right.
I'm so excited to introduce you, Shaun, to this audience. And I usually find that the best way to do an introduction is to have you introduce yourself because so often, reading a bio just doesn't do it justice. So, can you just tell us who you are and what you do and why you're so unique?
Yeah, totally. So I am a content marketing consultant. I am also an owned media strategist. And right now, I'm really excited about helping companies incorporate Substack into their content marketing ecosystems because it is such a great tool for sharing your brand story and building relationships. And I personally love it. I've never loved a social media platform like this. So that's what I do. My background is in journalism and content marketing. I started my career as a journalist. I worked in print, I worked in online news, I've been a magazine editor, and I've also been a cookbook editor, a development editor for a cookbook publishing company. I specialized in healthy cookbooks for brands like Cooking Light and Weight Watchers. I've been a foodie. I grew up in a military family and we moved around a lot. I remember when I was 9 years old, we moved to Germany and I fell in love with things like schnitzel. And I've been a foodie ever since and have learned to cook, went to culinary school, and have built a lot of the things in my life around food. I started a food blogging conference and I started a foodie book club. Now I'm kind of into fashion, so my own personal Substack's about fashion. So those are some of the things, and it's not that I'm a fashion stylist. I've never been a fashion editor, but it's more that I'm trying to figure it all out, and I'm in my 50s trying to figure it all out. I dealt with obesity most of my life, and 4 years ago, I started a journey and I lost 140 pounds. And so when you go through that, like everything in the closet's got to go. You got to start all over again. And so that's what I write about on my Substack. Like I am trying to rebuild my closet and discovering my sense of style. And then that's kind of led to self-discovery. So it's kind of self-discovery through the closet. And it's really fun. And a lot of people have gravitated toward it. So
Wow. I love your eclectic background, but how it all kind of has the same through line. And I am so excited to dive into Substack because, anytime there's this new, thing, this new platform, and I think that and to be honest, I don't even know if this is new. I've just been seeing it everywhere in the
uh,
big big creators. But what I'm really seeing is the big creators that we all know have gravitated over there. And I would love for you to give us a little insight into the power of Substack and how we should really think about this from our marketing strategy. I think so many entrepreneurs are like, okay, I'm on LinkedIn. I've got my email list. I've got to be on TikTok and Threads. What am I doing with Threads, right? Like, is that even a thing anymore? And then there's this Substack. And so, as you know, we both have been following each other on LinkedIn, and I have been loving your content because it's just so helpful to understand this thing that can really be super powerful. So help me understand Substack and how we should think about it as part of our marketing strategy.
Absolutely. So, and I don't want people to feel overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I've got to be in all these different places. I'm a big advocate for number one, just doing what you have bandwidth for and doing what really aligns with you. Like, if you hate writing, you don't have to write. Like, you could do videos, or you could do a podcast, or, like if you only have the bandwidth to be in one place, pick the one place where your audience really is and just go deep on that. Like, it's better to be deep on one platform than it is to try to spread yourself, a millimeter deep and a mile wide. And especially now in 2026, all the social media platforms are all about engagement and depth and building relationships. And so I think it's better just to go pick one platform and just to go really deep on it and, start imagine like you're going to a party and you're just starting to mingle with everybody and get to know people. And that's what you want to do, is just kind of start building relationships with people, commenting, having conversations, in the comments, and just engaging that way. So let's talk about Substack. I love Substack. Like I said before, I've always been a reader. I've always loved writing long form. And so Substack just kind of naturally pulls on those things that I really love. But I also, what I really loved about it that surprised me is it's just such a wonderful place to build community. I I moved to Baltimore last May, and outside of my family, everybody that I met in Baltimore are people that I met online in Substack.
That's
Like that,
wild. Really?
right? Yeah. And I've never had any that kind of experience with any other social media platform. So that's what I mean by it's really about building community. Like I've been able to build friendships with other people that were just so genuine and authentic that, when we had the opportunity, we're like, hey, when I said, hey, I'm moving to Baltimore, they're like, oh my gosh, I live in Baltimore. Let's meet. And so those have developed into friendships. So it's a great place to build community and build relationships. And just me as a user on Substack, it's the one place where I feel like I can go down a rabbit hole, or if I do go down the rabbit hole, I come out feeling enlightened or like feeling closer to someone, or just feeling educated and informed. Like I feel good when I come out of that rabbit hole versus kind of, other rabbit holes are just kind of like, oh my gosh, now I need a detox. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's how I view Substack as an individual, a user. From a marketing standpoint, Substack is a great place to build community. Most people, if they're not super familiar with Substack, they think of Substack as a newsletter publishing platform. It
Mhm.
definitely is that, but they are now trying to become a studio in your pocket. So they offer the newsletter, which you can get into everybody's email boxes. One of the unique things about Substack is your email list is yours. So you can come into Substack if you've got an email list already, import it, start growing, your email list. If one day you decide, hey, I'm tired of Substack, I'm going to move to another platform, you can take all of your whole list, including the new people that you've added since you joined Substack, and go someplace else. It is your list. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's very awesome. So you have the newsletter, and then you have like a home for your newsletter on Substack. So it's almost kind of like a blog. So you've got those two. Substack has its own internal social media platform called Notes, and it's very much like Threads. And so that's like another place where you can start building community and talking to people and seeing what people are writing about and comment and have conversations. You can produce a podcast on Substack. You can do live stream events, and then you can take both of those and break them down into smaller videos and push them out to LinkedIn or YouTube Shorts or, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you want to post. Then, you can also, with whatever you produce on Substack, whether you're doing a newsletter or a podcast or both, you can have your own private chat, and you can either make the posts open to Notes, they publish on Notes, or you can paywall it and keep it private, which is good. Like if you have a community where you want to have like a community where maybe the topic is sensitive and you want to create a safe space for people to share, then you can paywall it, and that way you can kind of cultivate this private community. And that to me is the secret power of Substack over other social media platforms, is it's got this community building platform as part of its entire platform. And the algorithm is also designed to build relationships. Substack doesn't make money until you start charging for your newsletter, right? And they
Oh,
take a 10% cut. And so their algorithm is designed to encourage subscriptions, and subscriptions are long-term relationships. So the algorithm is designed to encourage long-term relationships. And that's one of the reasons why I think Substack feels such a good place to be in.
oh my gosh. This is so informative. And I love that the algorithm is working towards relationships because if we want to be AI proof, it's all about community and relationships, right? And so
Absolutely.
to have an actual platform that is encouraging that is huge. So I'm curious, I know you work with entrepreneurs. Do you work in the corporate space with this as well? I can see how like it can really personalize. I'm a former healthcare executive and marketing in the healthcare space is so far behind. But it seems like such a powerful tool for, bigger entities as well as the entrepreneur space. I'm curious what you found there.
Yeah, I am starting to do that. And it's something I've been excited about doing. So I have one client that's in the age tech space, and we're working on developing their Substack strategy. And Substack, I believe it's like about 40. Substack doesn't really put their demographics out there, but if you look on SimilarWeb, about 46% of Substack's audience is 45 or older. So it is a great place for my age tech client. And there are a lot of people, like one of the things that I found for this particular client, one of their target audiences are family caregivers. Like say, you're an adult and you're,
Mhm.
taking care of your mom or your dad. And there's this huge gap. Like there's all the people who are, investing in, or developing age tech, and they're talking about, you know, look at this fabulous technology, who's investing in who, which company is growing, inquire, M&As and all that kind of stuff. And then you have these family caregivers who are removed from that. They've got their heads down, like, I just want to make sure mom's okay, or I've got to do X, Y, and Z for, for my parent. And they're like so heads down, it's hard for them to see all this technology being developed that could actually help them in their family caregiving. And so, like, but a lot of those people are on Substack. Like they are either posting about their day-to-day experience and building communities so they can like share, with other family caregivers, whether they're, empathizing with each other or sharing tips and how they're managing. And so there's this like rich community. And so I think that I've been in healthcare marketing for a little while, and I think that the real power for healthcare companies is to give patients and members voice. And Substack is one of the most substantial ways to do that. I mean, surely we can all have testimonials on our website and our social media, but Substack is such a great place to give people voice. They're already doing it, You can
Yeah.
kind of use that to build community. And that's where I think like a brand can come in and really be supportive. You can do a lot of social listening and really do some customer discovery. This company that I'm working with, they're really excited about the possibility of being able to build community and have them be testers and early adopters and get user feedback. So it's just a really fascinating space. I agree with you that health tech could really, and in fact, the first company to turn me on to this idea of like, oh, it was a mental health company. And they came to me and they were like, SEO's dead. We realized they were just kind of fatalistic about SEO, but they were like, SEO's dead. And we realized we have a brand book, but we've left it on the shelf and it's been collecting dust. And we neglected our customer relationships. And they were seeing Substack as a customer relationship tool. And they asked me to help them with a strategy for that. And so that's what made me go, oh, oh.
Yes. I mean, you could like grow real fast in the corporate space for sure, just on customer relationships. What I'm curious about, you mentioned people are coming to you to say, hey, help me build this Substack strategy for my business. How do you do that? Like, how do you align real revenue goals with a Substack strategy? What are some things that people should think about when they're ready to do this, whether it's adding this or replacing another thing that their marketing tool they're using in their business? And when should they maybe not think about using Substack?
Yeah. That's a good question because we know AI has changed the way marketing is happening, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not scared of AI. Like there's definitely things that it could be better at. Like I don't use it for writing health articles because there's just so many different issues with research and you don't, there's a lot. But on the flip side, I see on the big picture, I see AI as kind of being the thing that kind of clears the way for us to really start having relationships and telling our brand stories. So when you think about Substack, number one, I really want my clients to be in a place to understand and know that it is a long-term relational marketing strategy. It's not going to be like a quick transactional marketing platform. So if you're, and I find this is true with like small young companies, like they're, and I get it because I've been an entrepreneur, like you're so hungry to get those early dollars and like you're really thinking transaction, transaction, transaction. And Substack is not that. And as a newsletter platform, it is not like a replacement for like a MailChimp or something where you would send transactional emails or nurture series. Like it doesn't do that. So if that's important to your
Okay.
business, you still need a separate platform for that. That's not what Substack is for. The other thing that Substack is not for is it is not a great tool for AEO. Like everybody's working on their AEO strategy.
Mhm.
People are putting content out on Reddit, YouTube, LinkedIn. Those are great places to post and have content if you want the LLMs to read and feed the LLMs and work on your AEO strategy. Substack is not that platform. So if you want to have that strategy, you need to have that someplace else. Really think of Substack as a relationship marketing tool, a place where you can share your brand story, a place where you can connect with your end users. So
This is,
where I go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point out what you said that a place to share your brand story when we look at the long-term sustainability of businesses, which 80% don't last over 5 years. I don't, the stat is something like that. People skip the connection and the cultivation phase, right? And they want to go right to the conversion. And conversion immediately works for a short period of time. But if you want sustainability, what I'm hearing you say is Substack is a great sustainability tool for audience development. Is
Absolutely.
that what I'm hearing?
Yes, it is a great tool for audience development. It's a great tool for building customer relationships. It's a great tool for like finding those people who love your brand, like love your brand. And then like being in community with them and giving them access to you. And like, some brands are on there and it's like the founder or the founding team are sharing, like they're building in public, they're doing that kind of content, or they're sharing like, what's going on in their company or how they're seeing society and or the problem they're solving or sharing like there are people who love your brand and Substack's a great place to connect with those people who really, really love your brand and want to know more and want to dig in. And these are the people who are going to like, have they will wear your t-shirts and carry your bags and, like all that kind of stuff. And so that's good because then those are the people who are going to be doing your word of mouth. Those are the people who could be potential brand ambassadors,
Mhm.
right? So those are the things. And also like that's where, you can start measuring lifetime value of your customers. So those are the things that I like when I talk to companies about how to think about their Substack strategies. Those are some of the metrics and things that we can track over time. How are people engaging, brand engagement, how are they, impacting, word of mouth and bringing new people in and those kinds of metrics.
I love that because, the holy grail is to fill your business with referrals, right? It's like the ultimate quote, passive income, which I always say passive income does not exist, people. We do the work to then have the benefit of the income coming in. But I do love this concept of like this is the work that feels actually most authentic. It almost feels like a safe space to do the behind the scenes. And I think on platforms like LinkedIn and even Facebook to a certain extent, people still feel this need to represent themselves in a certain way and to start on a platform with the challenge of saying, you know what? I'm just going to really show up and speak what is exactly happening here. And
Yeah.
that's what people want. People don't relate to perfection ever. Like perfection never sells. So
Yeah.
I also love because it's built for connection and relationship, this idea of encouraging people to who want to who feel this disconnect between who they really are and who they're showing up to be as kind of this like way to practice almost,
Mhm.
being more authentic to get higher level premium clients in the long run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think of and LinkedIn kind of feels that way like everybody's trying to be like I'm the guru who knows everything,
Yeah.
and I get that. But, it kind of feels sometimes disingenuine, right? Or,
Yeah.
And Substack is a place where you can really be authentic. The companies that I do see on there, like people are, being more like, company leaders and teams are using a slightly different voice, and not, it's still on brand, but it's just kind of like, what is your
Yeah.
voice when you go to a party versus when you're, or when
Yeah.
you're hanging out with your girlfriends, versus, and so versus being at work, and so it's just a really good platform where you can just be authentic. You can experiment with a slightly different voice. You can really create, meaningful connections with people and really be authentic. And people appreciate that,
Yeah.
and sometimes they need it to be able to trust your company enough to buy, you know.
Yes, people think they always need to be talking about what they do, but as you've shown, it's like you're talking about fashion over there as a in your 50s and fashion and like that matters, you know? Like you maybe you're not selling a fashion offer, but like people are really connecting with you in a deeper way because we're more than just one thing, right? So when we show
Absolutely.
that, this is super, super helpful. And I want to have a way for people to connect with you on Substack and beyond, because I think this is really just to have these conversations with you specific to their business to say, does this make sense? Like, could you explore this with you? One thing I want to kind of shift to, because you clearly have built your expertise in this area. And I think one of the important things with entrepreneurship is people think that they just automatically need to be the expert. And as you shared in your intro, you've done a whole bunch of different things, right? And as professional women who are of a certain age, we've all had a lot of different experiences.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to share a little bit of insight into kind of how you handle adversity. And I know that you mentioned something that you're really proud of in your business that happened kind of pre-COVID and COVID kind of changed that trajectory for you. And I think it's really important to share kind of this behind the scenes, like what is that really like? Because you didn't just start as the expert here, right? You went
Right.
through some stuff. So can you share maybe your experience that started out great and had some bumps and adversity along the way that kind of got you where you are?
Oh, yeah. So I had a startup before COVID hit. It was called Living Book. And my concept was I'd had an agency right before then that was like a boutique content marketing agency that specialized in food and health. And I pivoted a little bit because I'd come out of the cookbook world to try to focus on cookbooks. And so this would be like appliance companies that need a little cookbook to go with the appliance, or food companies that, if you can, tell people what they can make with that ingredient, you can encourage them to buy more. So that, we were focusing on recipe development and cookbooks, which was really, really fun. But most companies only need a new cookbook like every other year.
Yeah.
So, the sales cycle was slow. So anyway, out of that, like a friend of mine was like, Shaun, you should just own the recipes and license them. And then so I kind of pivoted toward this startup called Living Book. And the concept, right at that time, I had a good friend who had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. And, after years of not knowing what was wrong, her doctor sent her home with this list of, I call it, a chef friend of mine calls it the list of bland, but this like list of food that she wasn't supposed to eat anymore. She literally called me crying, and was like, I don't know what to eat. And I'm like, she had to eat this way for the rest of her life. And I'm like, that is not the way to start. Like don't send people home
Yeah.
crying and this is the way they have to eat. So I was like, what if you could, instead of that list, go to a kiosk in your doctor's office, plug in your condition, your food allergies, your food preferences, or your faith-based diet. It shows you a list of recipes that match your profile. You get to choose the recipes that you like and create your very own cookbook. You get to pick a cover image. You get to, choose a title like Great Food Every Day with Carrie.
Oh my God,
And
I love it.
and so we built this platform, and it gives you a downloadable PDF right there, and there's a QR code with every recipe. So you could scan it and get the ingredient list and send it to Instacart, Amazon Fresh, or Walmart Grocery. So you could literally be in your doctor's office, get the diagnosis, go to the kiosk, build your cookbook, download the PDF, scan it, order groceries, and have the groceries at your door by the time you get home from the doctor's office.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
10 days later, you would get a printed hardcover book in the mail. And it really made a difference because we know scientifically that if people who have dietary needs for health can, and in the same home, if everybody in the home is eating similarly, like not everybody has to be on that diet, right? You know, maybe you want a little more cheese, but if everybody's kind of eating similarly, then that person's more likely to stick to the health change they need to make. And the book was a great tool for that because, like, if you go home with a book that says eating for diabetes, your family's like, have fun with that, right? But I had like one customer, this is an example of how impactful it was. I had one customer who had bought her cookbook. She unwrapped it, she left it on the counter. Her husband came home that night and he was like, what's this? Cooking with Galena? And he started flipping through it. And he's like, oh, and like this, the photography was all done by my colleagues from the cookbook publishing industry. Like, this was like, you know, people who had done work for Cooking Light and Gourmet and Real Simple. So the photography was like banging. And so he was like, the food photos were speaking to him and the recipes were easy. And he was like, you know, it's a personalized cookbook with his wife's name on it. He was like, let's make this tonight. He had no clue that it was a book about her health. And that was the power of the book. Like I had other customers say, like, you know, my whole family's in on it and you know, I don't have to give up my culture and, you know, we can cook together, you know, and it feels good. So we built this platform, had early customers, made this go-to-market plan where we were going to do experiential marketing. We are going to have venues where we could cook some of the recipes, have like little iPads so people could build their own cookbooks. Like, and we had like all these events planned out, meeting with doctors and benefits leaders and like all kinds of stuff, right? COVID hit.
Hmm.
Everything was canceled. Nobody was doing conferences. There were going to be no meals. Couldn't even go to the doctor's office. Doctor's offices weren't letting anybody in. And then on the investor side, and by the way, like my this startup, like I was in a program, an accelerator program called Goodie Nation in Atlanta for founders who are women and people of color. And it was backed by Google for Startups. So I had support from Google for Startups. I had support from AARP's Age Tech Collaborative. So I had some good support. So COVID hit, all the events were canceled, couldn't go to doctor's offices to show it off. Like it, and then on the investor side, like all the investors wanted to invest in was something that was going to help COVID. So you know, I bootstrapped, I had the support that I had, but it just hit a wall and the company, it did not survive COVID. And like
Oh,
that, I'd invested, like I believed in it so much, I put almost all the chips on the table. So that was like a huge failure. And that was a long story. But yeah, so it took a long, I will say this, like it took a long time. Like it took a long time to get past the pain of that failure. Like right when it first happened, it was so hard to talk about it,
mm,
you know, and I've gotten to a point obviously where I can. And it was so hard to feel good about what I'd done. Like even if it failed, I still accomplished a lot. I impacted people's lives. I hope people think differently about how we should talk about helping people eat to manage or prevent chronic conditions. And also like how can we do it in culturally appropriate ways so people don't feel like they have to give up the food they grew up with in order to eat healthfully. But it was just hard to get past that failure. And I don't know what to say to other founders who may be facing that kind of failure, except just to give yourself a lot of time and grace and to have some people you can talk to about it who get it, you know? My father was an entrepreneur and he was very successful, but he even had a heart like felt like he didn't have people he could talk to. And I think that's really important, you know, and to like celebrate your accomplishments. You know, a lot of people know like are good at failing forward. And this was like a really interesting finding because Goodie Nation really focused on helping marginalized founders. One of the
mm.
findings that it was like maybe a year after my business had failed, but one of the I'd seen posts and they noted that when white men founders fail, it's an accomplishment. Like they had gone out, they started this thing, you know, like, you know, they can build with it. Like they can run and say, you know, that's, you know, hey, we built this thing, it didn't make it, but I learned blah, blah, blah. And they can fail forward. Whereas they noticed that women and people of color became withdrawn.
Yeah.
And so I like so like people you need support and you need to be aware of that and to give yourself the support to be
Yeah.
able to be proud of what you accomplished and even though it failed you impacted somebody and you built something.
I mean, it's so true. The pressure on women is different. We have to come from prove it energy to belong in the room, right?
Mhm.
And we can't just go out on the golf course and sign a big deal. That's not how it works. And that's why, it's really interesting how we hold that word failure. Like as you described that, I was like, that is amazing. And I would never have used the word failure to describe the experience that you just described. And
Wow.
and so I'm surprised that you're using that word actually, because I relate to I was doing healthcare consulting. That was my business, and COVID hit, and every bit of my revenue went away.
Wow.
And you do, and so many other people experience this, right? And lost jobs and all of the things. But it's really interesting how, when we view this from a place of failure, like how can it be failure when there is an unforeseen external thing that not just impacted us, but like the world, literally. So, but you feel this place of like, I should have known, or something that's so ridiculous. So the expectation that we have. And then, you do, as you said, you go through this grieving process of now what? And it's really based in fear. For me, it was based in fear. And so it's really looking at that incredible thing that you built that helped lives. And I hear you talking about it from a place of like, you learned how to customize to the masses. And what a gift that is for what you do now as you're growing. Like that right there is such an important gift that you had in that business that I'm sure would be thriving had investors and COVID and all of the things. But it's always so interesting to look at like what you did so well in that and how you've used that, maybe even unknowingly, to build what you're building now. So is failure such an interesting concept for women, I think,
It is. It is. I
It,
kind of wonder if like the stakes are different for
mm,
women and people of color versus white men. Like I don't know, but like I like in the community that I was in when I was in Atlanta, in the Atlanta entrepreneur scene, it seemed like a lot of people who are marginalized really felt like, I want, like, it wasn't just I want to build a business. It was like I want to build a community, or I want to build community wealth, or I want to build family wealth, or like I want to build on legacy, or I want to change the power dynamics that are, you know, and and I think that like that's part of it. Like that was part of that for me. And I saw that in a lot of the women and people of color that I was in community with there.
but yes, that's obviously I can't speak to being a woman of color because I am not, but I as a woman can feel it's like this pressure, when you think of how men are raised and how they're taught business, it's like just do the logical thing that makes money. Like just do this
Yeah.
strategy and make the money, right? Versus women are taught about the mindset and the emotional piece of it. And all of those things are important and
Yeah.
also cap men at a certain level if they don't pay attention to that. But I do feel like there is a disservice for women in business that we're not just taught the logical path to make more money, because we do have bigger missions to hold. Because
Yeah.
women are like we are here to lead the purpose. Like if you think about that queen energy versus king energy. Like if a queen, like I was thinking like Queen Elizabeth, for whatever
Mhm.
you pros and cons, but like you
Right.
think of like of a queen energy, it's like she's making decisions for the greater good, and not everybody's gonna, but like she's like making decisions so the king can like lead the army and support the decision. And it's like if women owned, and I don't use like queen energy and things like that
Yeah.
very often in
Uh-huh.
my common vernacular, but really like for me, what that means is like we have to own that bigger mission, I can't say the word, mission and purpose.
Uh-huh.
because who else is going to help marginalized communities? Who else is going to give their money
Right.
away? It's us,
Right.
you
And
know?
we see the power of money to change things, like all of us do, right? And you're so right. Like I've seen so many women who are in the health space, both fellow entrepreneurs as well as, clients of mine who like they're not just building like, something for women to have better health, but they're like also trying to change the paradigm of why is medical research always primarily centering men and not women? Or, like, why aren't we having more frank conversations about menstrual cycles, or why aren't we, why doesn't, health, have better care for menopause? Like we're carrying all of that, and it's so true. And then like we see how money, there's one entrepreneur, I love her. Her name is Dollivant. And she said entrepreneurship is 21st century activism.
Oh my God, that just gave me goosebumps.
Right?
Wow.
And so we are like as women, we are carrying all of these other things. Like her startup was about water measuring home tests to measure water quality. And part of her story was let's not have another Flint.
Mm,
And so I mean like so we are as women and people of color, we're always carrying other
yeah.
things and wanting to impact more than just you know business and making money and revenue, but we also want to have social impact too.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so imperative that we learn to take that pressure and transmute it into momentum,
Mhm.
And it's so important that we are surrounded by women who also have that higher level impact dream, because most people don't. They just feel, because of the world that we live in, that they don't have the power. And so it's really important that the women who know that they have the power are built up to
Yeah,
take that action. Oh my
100%.
gosh, Shaun, I have loved this conversation with you. I have loved that you've shared so much of your insight and truth. Where, first and foremost, can people find you to talk about the Substack and whether it's right for their business and what that might look like? Like, how can we send people to you?
Yes. So I have a website for my Substack business called Brave Evelyn. I named it after another wonderful woman who's an entrepreneur. Braveevelyn.com. That's where you can reach me and learn about my Substack services. And then if you want to just follow my Substack, I write about style. It's called Redressing. So redressing.substack.com.
Awesome. I will be
Yeah.
following you. And so I just downloaded the Substack app like a
Oh,
couple of
cool.
weeks ago. So I am like following all the things. Well, thank you so much. And please reach out to Shaun if you are just curious about Substack and your business. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great conversation. I enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, me too.